Welcome, everybody, to the I Work For Me podcast with Melina Lewis. I'm very excited today to have Trizanne Barnard on the show. Now, Trizanne is a woman after my own heart, except she's actually done a bit more about it. I just drink wine. She actually makes wine. And I think that that is amazing on a number of levels. I'm like, woohoo, woman power, in terms of what I think is still quite a male dominated industry. She can maybe tell me otherwise, but I think it's fantastic that she is making wines in South Africa and not only here, but then exporting them overseas. So she's got a fantastic story, and I'm really glad that she could join me and share more about how this journey has kind of started and where it's going, because I think there's iterations happening all the time. So she's very innovative too. So without more rambling from me, let's get straight into saying hello, Trizanne, and welcome.
Hi, Mel. Thanks so much for having me and for the opportunity to talk to you guys.
That's
Really
great.
excited. Yeah.
Thank you. Yay. It's brilliant. So in my podcast, I just kind of ask people the very first question that I always want to know is, when you were a little girl, what was the first thing you remember wanting to be? I'm guessing it wasn't a winemaker, or maybe it was, but what is the first thing you wanted to be?
No, I was definitely not a winemaker. I think the first thing I wanted to be was a game ranger as a child.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But then, yeah, I mean that never happened. So I was a bit clueless as I got older. And I actually went overseas for 2 years, and I worked on a kibbutz in Israel.
Oh, wow.
And that actually, that exposed me to agriculture for the first time. So I worked with water lilies and koi fish on the kibbutz.
Wow.
And that's because I actually didn't grow up here. I grew up south of Johannesburg, so I wasn't in the winelands or anything like that. I didn't grow up here. So the kibbutz really opened up my eyes to agriculture, and from there I actually moved to the UK and to London, and I worked in a fine dining restaurant, and that actually exposed me to international wines for the first time. And so, knowing that I wanted to go into a science direction, I came back and decided to study viticulture and enology, which is a BSc in agriculture at the Southern Pacific University.
Wow.
So that's how I actually got into it. Yeah.
And
from game ranger to knowing nothing to working on a kibbutz and then ending up making wine.
Well, it just shows that kind of cumulative effect of the journey that your life took. You know, you went to a kibbutz wanting to kind of, seek new experiences, and there you learned about agriculture. That then coupled with that fine dining in the UK, and ta-da, married perfectly in viticulture. So I love that. That's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
I am so
my sorry to interrupt. My first wine tasting was in the Golan Heights in bordering Israel. So I mean, from South Africa, not tasting wine, going all the way to Israel, and then doing my first wine tasting there. So it is a little bit random, but I mean, probably not so random. I'm probably meant to be.
Yeah, definitely meant to be. Well, don't worry. I know the whole thing in terms of growing up in Joburg. I also come from Joburg, so it's it's interesting kind of where life takes you, and here we both are kind of living in small seaside towns. So yeah, it's a great journey actually. So yay.
Yeah.
So Trizanne, can you tell us a little bit about your wines and the different aspects, because you have a few different ranges which are targeted at different markets. And can you explain how that all works and what you're up to?
Okay, so perhaps I'll go a little bit back just to give some context. So, I mean, I graduated and then I didn't just start up my own business. I actually worked for a few wineries. Wow. I worked abroad in Australia and France and Portugal. And I worked in very specific areas. So in Australia, I worked in Margaret River. So that actually was the first almost new world but cooler climate area that I worked in. And from there I went to Alsace, and that again is almost it's a cooler climate and it's more focused on aromatic whites. And then I came to South Africa and I became the assistant winemaker for Klein Constantia. And again, that was a focus on cooler climate, more Sauvignon Blanc orientated. From there, I actually became the chief winemaker for Anvilke, which is their sister vineyard in the Helderberg. And then I only made red wines. So when I decided to go on my own after 5 years working for the Klein Constantia and Anvilke team, I decided, well, I want to focus on only two specific wines. One from a white wine from a cool climate area, because I've had all this experience with cool climate, and then a red wine from a slightly warmer area. And my idea was to create wines that are very, very distinctive to the areas. So I chose Elim, which is Cape Agulhas, so it's very much a cool climate area. And obviously Sauvignon Blanc is the reigning cultivars there. So that's why I decided to make a Sauvignon Blanc as blended with a bit of Semillon. And then my other chosen area was the Swartlands, because I just thought those were two very opposite poles of wine areas. And I could probably create red and white wines that are very distinctive to their areas. And so I made a Shiraz from the Swartlands. So that was right in the beginning when I went on my own, which was in 2009. I only had these two wines, but then obviously as business grow and you evolve and you get to know the areas a little bit more and you experiment with varieties that are maybe not as superior in that area but can also do really well. That's how the brand kind of grew. Right. So I've always kept the Sauv Sem from Elim, and I've always kept the Shiraz from Swartland. But then I've added some wines like the reserve wines, the Syrah from Elim, which is also the Shiraz from that area. Again, now you're working with a variety that does well cool climate and warm climate. And so I decided, well, I've got to add that element now, because I'm enjoying making Shiraz, but I would love to make Shiraz from a cooler climate area. Right. And so actually the reserve Syrah from Elim has become probably my favorite wine, because it's so distinctive to its area. It's so expressive of cool climate. It's got that beautiful white pepper character that's very much cool climate, and a lot of people are not familiar with that. Shiraz are always known from warm climates, a lot of oak, a lot of extraction, and one can actually create beautiful wines from cool climate, red wines. And I think the Elim Syrah shows that really well. And so I also decided to look a little bit further and go to the Darling area. So because there was a variety there called Barbera, which you are familiar with.
Oh, my favorite.
Knowing the northern Italy and Piedmont area. And there was a small little vineyard out there that none of the other winemakers were really keen to take on these grapes, because Barbera is not a very familiar grape variety in South Africa. So, no one wanted to take this block. So I was quite keen to put up my hand and say, okay, well, I'll experiment with it. So that kind of added to the brand as well, and to the portfolio. So it's taken, how many years are we now? I'm in my
11.
I don't know, 11th year. And it's taken a while to kind of understand where you're going. And obviously you kind of, you try things and you drop things, but the focus has always been Elim and kind of building on Elim, and then the Swartland as well. And then actually just to express wines from areas, like to really choose varieties that are very expressive of that area. That, I'm not going to make a Chenin Blanc from Elim, because, Chenin is not grown out there. It's not the best area for Chenin, and I'm definitely not going to make a Pinot Noir from the Swartland, because again, it's not going to work. So that's so with the wines, there's like the TSW, which is kind of more the entry level wines, and then there is the reserve wines, which is more kind of your top end premium wines.
Okay.
And parallel to that, I've started the Dawn Patrol brand, which is, so after so many years, after, you know, I've had this like longing to give back to the community, and wine is a bit of a paradox because we've
Mm.
got this dark cloud of history hanging over us with the DOP system and alcohol abuse, and you kind of wonder, geez, so how do you actually make a difference? And so I decided with Dawn Patrol, my passion is the ocean and surf. And why don't I use Dawn Patrol as a brand that gives back to the ocean, to surf communities? So there's two incredible organizations that Dawn Patrol is supporting. So part of the profit goes back into these two organizations, and it's called Ocean Pledge, which is all about making people aware of single-use plastics and what it's doing to our oceans, and also just educating people about how to get away from, how to minimize single-use plastics. And then they've created this incredible restaurant program where they're helping restaurants to get rid of single-use plastics.
Wow.
And then the other one is Surf Pop, which is a organization here in Masipumalele who helps kids to get into the ocean,
Wow.
and help them develop with surfing, and giving them support with their education and a feeding program, and also just getting into the ocean, and also obviously learning about our oceans and protecting our oceans. So Dawn
Wow.
Patrol is, so Dawn Patrol is a brand that gives back, and it's that brand that it's a brand that I want to create that is a familiar household brand, but a
Mm.
brand that makes you think a little bit further as to, you know, if I drink this wine, I'm actually doing good, and I'm actually putting back into our communities and into our oceans.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. I love it when a product can be associated with good in the world, you know, and it was like the Body Shop. I used to support them, you know, and then they were bought by, I think, Revlon or something. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely love that you have actually taken your product and made it into something that is going to now hopefully affect real change, which is amazing. So yay, good on
Yeah, I
you.
think awesome. Thank you. Yeah. No, I think it's our responsibility. We've got a massive responsibility on this planet, and you know, it doesn't matter how small or how big it is. You know, we all have to just try and make a small difference, because it's cumulative. You know, and if we all make a
Absolutely.
slight small difference, you know, it all adds up.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to
Cool.
just kind of maybe almost take a step back and say, you know, at some point in your journey, you left your paying job as an assistant winemaker or a winemaker in these, you know, big wine farms, and you decided to go on
Yeah.
your own. Can you tell me
Yeah.
why? Like what was the kind of like the push? And did
Mm.
you have to do anything, or I mean, how easy or hard was that? And you know, making that leap, what did you have to have
Yeah.
prepared?
Ignorance is bliss, right? So yeah, I guess if we have to take it completely back, I do come from a family, especially my dad is a complete entrepreneur. So I think I am definitely born with that kind of DNA in me to do my own thing. And I think from varsity, I knew that I wanted to, I just planted the seed that I'm definitely going to, at one stage, have my own brand. And I had no idea how, because like I said, I didn't grow up here. I'm not from a family with vineyards or a winery or anything like that. But the seed was there from the start. And I think probably the one thing that pushed me a little bit earlier to do it was, when I started working, I soon realized that working for a winery, and for someone, they are in control of your time. And I had this very clear picture, as a young girl, that one day I will be kind of in charge of my own time.
Mm-hmm.
But also I had this clear idea of how I wanted my family structure. And my mom used to work full time. So I was very independent from a very young age. And so, I mean, because she was working full time, I mean, you know, I was independent, and I gained all these like incredible tools almost. But I always also realized that I don't want that. I actually want to be a mum at home one day. You know, I want to be able to you know, take my kids to school, or, you know, be available.
Yes.
And I realized, so then life happened, and I graduated and I started work, and I realized, ooh, this is not going to fit my picture if I had to work, especially in a winery where your hours are insane, especially during harvest. You know, people work 18-hour shifts.
Wow.
It's around the clock. It's 7 days a week. You know, it's for weeks on end. And I just realized, geez, this is just not going to fit my picture if I have a family one day. So, and also, I think I am a self-starter, and I'm extremely good with time management. So I realized that when I was at a winery, like, I could finish my work and, you know, do everything, and then I still had to be at work. And I was like, yeah, this is crazy. I'm wasting my time here. You know, yeah. It's like, no. So I realized, you know, how am I going to do this on my own? Because I had to go completely the different route. You know, when I went on my own, no one did the way, you know, it wasn't common for people to rent cellar space, to buy in grapes, and to start up a brand. People just didn't do that. You either are from a well-established winery, or, you know, or you are going to buy a farm, or whatever, you're a well-established brand. So it was taking a serious leap of faith, and I was glad at that stage. Like, I just got married. I didn't have kids, because I think if I waited any longer and I had kids, and you almost have that responsibility of children, like, then taking this major leap of faith and huge financial commitment, I'm not sure if I would have had the guts to do it. And I really didn't start. I mean, and this is where ignorance came in, because I had no financial backing. I had a little flat that I bought in Somerset West on the wrong side of the tracks. And it was still in the days where they would extend bond. So I extended my bond. I maxed out the bond on that. I cashed in my pension, which was like, I mean, it was 5 years of pension, so it wasn't really anything. And then I also said to I went out to the farmer in Elam, and I said to him, listen, I'll exchange winemaking skills for grapes. So that's how I kind of wangled my first year. It's like pimping my winemaking skills for grapes. And then so I had just had enough money to bottle that year.
Right.
And then I realized, geez, now, you know, you're almost going into cycle 2. So it's like you're instantaneously selling all of that wine, and now you have money for vintage 2. So then things got really, really tricky, because now your cash flow is depleted. You know, the sales are trickling in, but it's not like massive amounts, and you've got these huge expenses of grapes and cellar space and barrels that you have to pay. And no, it was every single day I asked myself, what am I doing, and is this worth it? And my husband actually said to me, you know, what is your alternative? Your alternative is to go back and work for someone. And he knew very well that I wasn't going to do that. So it was just cuppa, you know, cuppa for a few years. And then eventually I chopped and changed a little bit. And then things started easing up, and I could see the end of the light, and sales started picking up, and I started consulting, and, you know, you do whatever you need to do to get some cash in, until things start flowing. But it took a good 5 years for this business to start flowing.
Wow.
And a lot of tears in between. Like, oh my goodness. Yeah, exactly that.
No.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, they say you need, well, a lot of people say businesses close in the first, you know, 3 years. So you managed to push through, And yeah, businesses, take time, 5 years, I think
It takes time.
is good, and you hung in there. So in terms of that journey that you went through, is there anything that you feel is kind of almost like a universal truth in what you learned and what was critical to your business? You've mentioned cash flow and kind of going,
Yeah.
no more pensions to kind of liquidate, no more flats to, pull out of mortgage. So, cash flow is definitely always king. But was there anything else that you learned in developing this business?
I think, I think surrounding yourself with really, really good people, people
Okay.
that's almost better than you, is really
Definitely.
key. Don't think you can do it all yourself,
Mm.
and take advice from people that you admire or that you look up to. And for a long time, I kind of kept on working in my business, working in it, working for myself, working, and then realized, geez, I'm not having any time to zoom out and working on the business. So, and then that's when I started, okay, well, I've got to get someone that can help me do. I don't have to do all the administration. That's not the winemaking. I need to get someone that's really strong with that, so that I can focus on the selling and actually making the wine. So I'd say identify where you critically need it, and do that as well as you can. But the stuff that you're not critically needed for, outsource that if you can, because then also you're freeing up time, you're freeing up your creative space in your brain to start thinking differently about your business. Because if you're like, you become like a hamster and you're running on that little treadmill, and you're not thinking creatively on how I can change this business, how can I change tact if financially it's not working out. Because if you don't have that space to think, then you're not going to be able to change tact. So yes, definitely align yourself with people that can help with the stuff that you're not good at, or that you don't actually necessarily have to do. Because it takes so much energy from you if you're not really good at stuff. Like if you're not great at administration, or not great at writing creatively, which is very important in winemaking. You've got to constantly write stories and write tasting notes, and like, I'm not a creative writer, so get someone to help you with that. And also realize for your business why you're doing this. It's so important to, not how you're doing it, is why you're doing this. Because then things start falling in place, and then if you know why am I in this, why am I doing this, why am I creating this wine, why am I, is it for wine? It doesn't even have to be because I want to make the best wine. It's because I love seeing people enjoying my wine, or I love giving back, or whatever that might be. Whatever your why is in your business, make sure you've identified that right in the beginning, because then the rest of the stuff will follow. If you've got that actual if you've got that ethos, then things do fall in place. Cash flow is, I mean, that's, we all know that, we all we all fall prey to that. But we all know that that's really important. So make sure that you have a bit of accounting savvy, or get someone to help you to make sure that you're not going to fall into those big pitfalls. And then also just stamina, and know that this is not easy. If this was easy, everyone would do it. And you've got to like just hang in there. I think that was probably just being tenacious.
Yes.
And also get people on your side. You're always going to get, I'd rather align yourself with people that believe in you. Don't align yourself with people that are thinking this is going to fail, because there's always people thinking that this is not going to work. And if you fall prey to that, then there goes your morale, and you need all the positivity. So I align myself with people that truly believe in me. Maybe they don't believe in my product or whatever, but they believe that I could pull this off. And that was that helped me a lot to get going, and to see the tough times through.
Yeah, that is critically important. Thank you. I mean, all of those are gems in terms of advice. And I really think that, yeah, aligning yourself to people who believe in you is so critical,
Yeah.
you know, and often it is a partner, a life partner, or it could be a family member, or it could be a friend, or it could be someone in the industry. What I find is sometimes nice, you get people who you don't expect, and they'll come up and go, oh, I love your X, Y, and Z, you know, and I think it's really great. And you're like, oh, wow,
Really?
yay, a
Thank
fan.
you. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
You know, and you've
Exactly.
just got to keep that person, you know, in your heart. Maybe you don't see them all the time or whatever, but you've got to just keep remembering that at least there's one person out there, you know, who's a fan. And I think that is so important in remembering and
Yeah,
keeping you
totally.
going on those low days.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's
Because, yeah, I
phone.
mean, that's all right.
It's
I
just
mean,
bothering.
you know, you probably start your business because you believe in yourself, you know, and that's the most important thing. You've got to start to obviously believe in yourself, otherwise you'll never pull this off.
Right.
But like you say, you know, you go through dark times or difficult times, and then that self-belief kind of, you know, it
Wanes.
like disappears, it wanes. So it's really important then to like tap into those energies that people that those people that like that got your back. Um,
Absolutely.
mm,
Yeah, it's
it
critical. It's
pulls you through.
critical. Yeah, it really, really does. Yeah, and a good glass of wine.
Yes. That
Always.
helps a lot. Always. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, like, so, I mean, it took you 5 years, you know, here you were, this, young punk in terms of kind of this very established, you know, Cape Town wine industry. And you're now, what were you doing in terms of, like, you made your couple of boxes of wine? Were you like hauling down to the local liquor store and going, hi, I'm Trizanne, you want to buy my wine? Like, how do you market your wines? Because, I mean, you had to start somewhere,
Mm.
but then, you know, how has that evolved? Talk to us about
Yeah.
selling your product.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another critical thing is you have to be able to sell. And
Yeah.
nobody teaches you that at varsity. So yes, I did that. I did exactly that. I did cold calling. You know, I'd make appointments with people, with wine shops or restaurants that I think that I would want to be aligned with, and I would go and taste with them, taste my wines with them. And then you have to put yourself out there, and you have to give your wines to the journalists so that they can like write about your wines, and you don't know what they're going to publish. So you're going to have to just do that to get exposure.
Right.
Because the one thing often when people go on their own, they normally worked for a quite established winery, so they've had quite a bit of exposure as a winemaker. So they've
Okay.
probably done a lot of marketing. They've gone overseas. They've done the local trade part of as a winemaker of whatever establishment. But I actually didn't have that because Anvilka was only focused on the entrepreneur French market. So I had a very, and I actually didn't realize what a big disadvantage I had because I wasn't actually known in our market. I didn't do a lot of winemaker tastings. I didn't do a lot of dinners. I never had to go to the trade, because we just shipped all our wines overseas. So I think your networking is really important. So when you it doesn't matter what industry you are, is that like align yourself with the people that actually make waves in your industry, and it's either going to be and stand you in good stead or not, but you're going to have to just take that, be courageous and do it. And then there's so many leads. I find that the one thing that I found as soon as I went on my own, other doors started opening up.
Wow.
And maybe sometimes you have this very specific picture that this is where I'm going to go and this is how I'm going to get there. And it's you've got to be able to change. Like other doors open up, and you've got to maybe it's not exactly what you had in mind, but promise you, if you walk through that door, another door is going to open up, and it might get you to where your end destination, your head was.
Right.
So don't be afraid of taking on something that's maybe not exactly aligned, but it's still in the wine industry, or whatever it could be. Doors open up and you've got to walk through them. You can always close them, but you're never going to know what's on the other side unless you've taken that, you've gone through that door. So I mean, so there's various things that happened in the last 11 years that brought me to where I am today, but was that I was quite open to change tact. Eventually, like after a few years, you realize, okay, well, if I can just sitting in the premium sector, this kite is not going to fly. You've got to sell a lot of wine in the premium sector, and unfortunately, our premium sector is just not big enough. So think differently. Where else can I sell? Also, be present. In our industry, there are a lot of wine tastings. There are a lot of journalists coming to South Africa. There's a lot of sommeliers in South Africa. There's a lot of internationals come to South Africa. So get in the mix there. Be aware of what's going on in your industry. And even if I'm an introvert, so to go out and mingle and network is the worst thing for me. To stand on a platform and talk publicly to people, like I had to teach myself to do that. Like I would have sleepless nights over public talking, and now it comes natural to me. Wow. Because I've put myself out there every single time. So if it feels uncomfortable, just get over yourself, because if that means you're networking and you're meeting the right people, that's what you've got to do. So yeah, there's various angles in our industry, what got me and how I managed to sell in the end. Right. And I think it was basically getting myself out of my comfort zone in a lot of,
as it often is. It often is that thing where it's like nobody wants to be kind of like going and chatting and, making small talk, but you have to, how are they going to know?
You have to. Otherwise? Yeah, because that guy's going to tell you, oh, by the way, I'm exporting to Belgium and they said that they want a Sauvignon Blanc from cool climate area. That's what's going to happen when you're networking and chatting to that person that you didn't want to chat to. And then there you've got a lead for an export market. And yeah, so it's just it's taxing. It's especially depending on your personality. If you are introvert, it's extremely taxing to give that amount of energy, talking to people. But if that's what it takes, then you've got to do it. Yeah. So find out in your industry what it takes to get yourself out there and get your product out there in various ways. It's not just going to the person that's going to sell it. Yes. There's various ways to get to that person who's going to sell it. And figure out what that is and get yourself out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it took me so long because I was very shy and I didn't want to do that, and it was very uncomfortable for me. I hated it. But then you realize, well, this is how you're going to do it. You have to sell your product. You have to stand behind your product and make people understand and make them believe in your product, and therefore they've got to believe in you. So you have to give some of yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I think, in marketing, they say you've got to show up in front of someone's completely someone who doesn't know you, kind of 5 to 7 times, depending on the textbooks you read, I think. So you've got to have that Facebook ad, that thing in the newspaper, that review, that word of mouth. So you've got to be networking so people know you. How many ways can you find to appear in someone's view before they actually see you? Because you have to
take notice,
plugging every single hole and make sure you've tried every single one. Yeah. Sure, someone might see you in one place for the first time and love you, but that person is rare because there's such a flood of information out there in the world as well. So you need to be seen several times in different media.
Yeah. I think it became almost easier, but also harder these days because we have now all these extra tools, like you said, we've got all the social media tools, but it's like you said, people forget very quickly and they move on. It's that instant gratification. So you kind of you almost have to make an imprint in them, like appearing 5 or 7 times in front of them. Exactly. Which it's easier to do that now because you have the social media tools, but it's also made it
Yeah, double the
difficult
work.
because people move on. They want to see something new, different, because there's so many other stuff.
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly.
interesting. It's an interesting time to I think any time it's interesting to start a business. I mean, I started my business in the middle of a recession.
Yeah.
End of 2008, and people are like, oh, recession time. How can you start a business? It's the best time to start a business because if you can make it through a recession, you're going to make the next recession.
Totally.
So yeah.
Yeah, that is exactly it. I even heard, when was it? Someone was telling me, I was reading a book about a woman who also started her business in the recession, and it went to fly for that very reason, as you say. And yeah, it's amazing. I also wanted to ask you, just out of curiosity, so if you don't have a wine farm that you're selling out of, that people go, oh, I'm going to this wine farm, and then I'm going to do the wine tasting, and then I'm going to buy some wine and all of that. Sure, you'll be at, say, the trade, the wine kind of expos and all of that kind of thing. Do you feel like you maybe are missing out in terms of that market of kind of tourism? So from a tourism perspective, I know not right now, that was a very bad example.
No, it's very valid, yeah.
But how do you make up for that? Is there a way that you can do that?
I guess there's definitely a downside, the fact that I don't have my own premises. But I think I'm still fairly a small producer. So, to get my wines to the public, I've aligned myself with Exanimo. So my distributor, David Clark, is from Exanimo, and he's incredibly good to put public tastings together or to put trade tastings together. So I get that is an avenue to kind of overcome the wine farm tasting room facility. But you've got to weigh up, okay, so yes, I'm definitely missing out, but what are the cost to the infrastructure and the cost and the upkeep of something like that? So you've got to figure out, is it a make or break for you? It would be nice to have, but it's just not possible. My model doesn't work that way. I go and buy grapes and I rent space. That is the model that works for me without having all this infrastructure. When other farms, when it's a farm and it's a production facility, without a doubt you've got to have a tasting room, because that's just another definitely great pool for people to buy. I don't it's not an option for me. So, but that's fine. I compensate by selling either more to the international markets, because they don't require that. So yeah, my international markets are much bigger than my local market. And I focus very much on the trade, like the restaurant trade, and your liquor shops and stuff. So and then I guess by having good exposure, putting yourself out there, making your wines available for journalists to write about or to enter competitions, then you almost get that PR done for you if your wine does well, and then make sure that you've got a good online web shop, because then people buy without tasting. So yeah, make sure that your website then almost caters for your tasting room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just my curiosity is around, I'm writing a new book series, and I have decided to set it in the US. So like you, the reading volume overseas, like your drinking volume overseas, is bigger.
Much bigger.
It's just numbers of people. Okay, so numbers of people in America exceeds here. So you obviously want kind of to get into that market. And so I have set this new book in the US, but I had originally intended it to be here. And then my husband was like, no, go for it properly, set it in America. And so I did that. And so I needed a Stellenbosch. And so here it was going to be Joburg, Stellenbosch. So then I made it kind of Los Angeles and the Napa Valley in the US. And what I found quite interesting was that in Napa, so doing all my online research and, Google walking through Napa, I found that they have a lot of tasting rooms within the town of Napa, because obviously the farms are kind of spread around. And so people seem to kind of go to these little wine tasting bars, rooms, whatever, within the town, and probably never even expand and go out into the actual
to the
wine
vineyards
farms.
itself. Yeah.
And I was like, no, that's an interesting thought in
That's
the
a
South
good,
African context. And I thought, wow, you could have like a Constantia wine bar, and you could have like a Stellenbosch wine bar. Anyway, just putting it out there, hopefully someone in the world will do that. And then it's just like one trip, one Uber ride,
Yeah. No, that's a very cool idea. I've actually, so I've, in lockdown, I got this little warehouse in Heron Park. Just because I've got various warehouses, but they're sometimes, too far for the local market. So I decided to just get some space here. But now I am converting that into a little bit of a tasting room. And it's right next to the gin distillery. So it's
brilliant.
It's still very kind of grungy because it's warehouse area, it's at the Buco. But that area is like, it's got that 8° South, the barley place next to it, and it's got the ceramics place and the gin distillery, and there's a coffee bar. And so, it's like OBS, kind of Salt River, kind of like a little bit grungy, and then turning into something really vibey. So yes, I am actually working on that, and I will be open for wine tastings like per appointment. So, but it's not at the vineyard. But it's okay. It's in the warehouse.
That's okay. I think it's going to be
I like
amazing.
your idea,
the gin
I
bars.
like your idea of having little like wine hubs, like Constantia wine hub here and Stellenbosch wine hub here.
And all the wine farms kind of contribute,
cool,
and you have really good people that are doing stuff. So anyway, learn from the Americans. Damn, they do things well. So,
well, they do something right. Hey,
they do some things. Not voting for presidents, but we won't go there.
No.
So in terms of kind of all that you have learned over the years, are there any like grand, some of us don't want to talk about failures, but is there anything that you have learned that you would like always give as good advice to someone starting their own business and say, listen, I did XYZ, don't do that, do it now, or do it differently or something like that? Is there anything that stands out for you?
Sure, there's so many.
Just one.
Be very sure. I think just make sure why you're doing it. I think if you know exactly why you're doing this, then the things will fall in place. And it's going to be tough, very tough. Just hang in there. I've had many failures, but they're not like wine related failures that I've had. And don't be afraid to put yourself out there. That's it's you be tenacious and put yourself out there, even if it is uncomfortable. I always say, being in a comfortable space is not a safe space. You've got to, it's not a safe haven. Being comfortable, you have to, with this thing, kind of be uncomfortable most of the times.
Absolutely. And that's also often where the creativity comes in. So I think that's often the opportunity to look at things differently and to see how you can evolve or change. Or do you think? I think your business, in fact, is that. You weren't born into a wine farm. Where for both of us, shame. I also would have liked to have been born into a wine farm. That would have been nice. Damn, what is wrong with my parents?
Our parents, really.
They born us in Joburg, come on.
No, I was south of Joburg. I was Vereniging. It's like a step down.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hey,
I know now. Yeah, you feel for me. I
now I
know. I could
know.
just see it
Yeah,
on your face.
that's now. No, actually, it's so funny. I've met more people from Vereniging in Cape Town than I have ever from living in Johannesburg. So I love that. I think it's hilarious. It's obviously further south, easier to get to Cape Town.
The furthest you can get, that's where we're gonna go. Yeah.
But I think, in terms of your business is created out of, like, you don't have a wine farm, but you're good at what you do. How can you produce great wines differently? And I feel like that is the innovation in itself. Oh, rent space from, another kind of facility, buy grapes, put them in a vat, turn them around. Okay, I know it's not that simple. I'm just being facetious.
It's that simple.
Okay, yeah, it's totally that simple. Whip up a couple of grapes,
like
stick them in a barrel, make a glass of wine. So, it's innovative in itself within a very old traditional way of doing things. You've managed to innovate.
Yeah. And don't be scared to break the rules there. Yeah, exactly. Don't be scared. You're doing your own business, you are swimming upstream, and just kind of get kind of comfortable with that, because that's what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got to get comfortable with the discomfort. So just one last little question. So obviously, as also a working mom, how are you in terms of your boundaries? So you had this vision of kind of the mom that you want to be, and now you've got this business. How do you manage those boundaries, kind of like family time versus kind of work time, versus your surf time, so your personal time, because you also need some time for yourself. So how are you managing those boundaries?
Yeah, it's a fine balance, and I sometimes do find that I don't have that balance all the time. But you just have to be really, like, you've got to like get really good with time management. And like I work with the calendar, like, and like every hour there's no idling time. You just make sure every hour is booked for, and make sure if surfing is important for you, or horse riding, or whatever it is, put it in your calendar, and book it out. Because if you don't put it in, another meeting is going to come on top of that, or the kids are going to come on top of that. So it's important to book out however you do it. If it's making notes or whatever, I work on a calendar, I book it out and make sure that that is in. Because then if everything I can see, okay, there's a tennis lesson for the kids, and there's a music lesson, and fetch there, then that's all in. Okay, now I've got this time left, and I've got that time. So yes, I need to go and yoga, otherwise I'm gonna go off my head. Or you just schedule it in. See it as part of your work schedule. Your life schedule has to be part of your, schedule it in your calendar. I'm at a point where I've got to schedule in going to the shops. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Or luckily, thank goodness for online shopping these days. Yeah. It's, if you get that busy, my mom always said, if you want something done, give it to the most busy person that you know. And it's true, because they schedule it in, they make time for it. So, but it is tough. And I think it's especially tough for women, because we are the homemakers, we are responsible for the children. I get a lot of support from my husband, but it's I don't want to say it's a more natural thing for us, but it's just, we do take on a lot with children and work and whatever. We do women just tend to take a lot on themselves. And then, but because of that, it is also our responsibility to take the time out for yourself. And for me, I just do it. I just schedule it. That's the only way I can do it. Yeah, and I drop balls all the time. I forget about stuff or whatever. But it's also okay. Don't be so. The other thing is like to learn not to be so hard on yourself. That's the other thing. It's like it's okay to and then forget something, or, if the wheels come off and whatever, it's okay. That's why we have tears. We are designed for that. We feel so much better after a good cry.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. And there is, I had some tax issues to deal with during lockdown, and I cried through lockdown, not because of lockdown, because I was on the phone to the SARS office. You are very horrible people. Yeah, it was just like, it was classic. So yes, we do have tears, and they do help, and it is okay, and you can move through it. And yeah, just in terms of your boundaries, I love that kind of blocking off time. I know I often look at my calendar, and from like, well, now it's 11 o'clock, my kids finish school early, but they literally, the whole afternoon is like these little blue blocks of like kiddie activities, and then you've got to kind of schedule in the morning. But yeah, blocking off time is critical. Otherwise, it's like your stuff or your work isn't as important as everything else, whereas it is. So yeah.
It is totally. It's totally. And yeah, like, make sure that the people in your home understand that, and that they're on the same page, that the kids understand that, your husband understand that. And also, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for the neighbor to, can you please just quickly pick up my child, or can they just come over for 10 minutes? It's okay to do that. You don't have to be superwoman. We all want to be, but it takes, like the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child, and we have to sometimes just remember and remind ourselves, we're not actually made to do this all on our own. Especially in the environment that we currently are, and women are a lot more, they're in the working environment. So, ask for help. It's all right.
It is.
It's fine.
It's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right to ask for help. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Trizanne. So now, how can people get hold of you and your delicious wines? I know how. I think your website is saved in my, history. So that's easy for me.
So
tell us.
So there's my website, which is www.trizanne.co.za. Then there's dawnpatrolwines.com. There's Facebook, Trizanne Signature Wines. There's Instagram. My telephone number, my emails all over the show. So, people are just welcome, and it does come to me. There's no random person at the back. And actually, the email will come to me. So I will answer.
Brilliant. I love it. Thank you. Yeah, that's definitely, I think, and just to kind of end off that is another thing, is that personal touch. And unfortunately, I don't have your beautiful card that I got with my box of tinned wines, but you often, you give a beautiful little card, and it said "You rock" on it. And I was like, I love that, So, just the small little touches, the personal touch in a business, being involved, I think is important. And that's what makes it does kind of stand out. So
and another thing is like, what take inspiration from businesses that stands out for you. So like, I love buying from Faithful to Nature, and they always have like this handwritten little note. I freaking love that. It's like so cool. Like, they actually wrote me a little note, so just pick up on those stuff that other businesses do that really inspires you or makes you feel good, and you can definitely implement it in your own business.
Absolutely.
So
brilliant advice. Thank you, Trizanne. Thank you so much, and thanks for the time. It's been amazing chatting to you. Have a great week.
Thanks, Mel. Really, thank you so much for the opportunity. I mean, you're an inspiration to so many with your writing and doing this and exposing others, giving people platforms. And so thank you so much for that. Like, sharing the love is awesome. That is a big difference that you're making in our world. So thanks, and keep on with the good work.
Thank you.
Cool.
Bye.